They say love is blind. But I wasn't just blind, I was naive. One moment of trust, one careless signature, and everything I had worked for was gone. My home, my savings, my dignity, all taken away by the person I once called my forever. The betrayal wasn't just about money, it was about breaking me, making sure I had nothing left to stand on. But if he thought I was going to stay down, he had no idea who he was dealing with. I lost everything to my ex. But in that loss, I found something far more powerful. The will to take it all back. I remember a time when every morning held the promise of something wonderful. I used to wake up to the sound of birds outside my window, the golden rays of sunrise gently spilling into a small apartment that I had decorated with care. My name is Rachel, and I once believed that love could move mountains. I had dreams bigger than the city I lived in, dreams that I nurtured with every beat of my heart. I worked tirelessly at my startup, a passion project that was as much a part of me as my own skin. I poured my soul into every detail, every line of code, every marketing strategy. It wasn't just a business. It was the embodiment of my hopes, my ambitions, and my belief that I could create a better future. At that time, I thought I had everything. I had a supportive circle of friends, mentors who believed in me, and most of all, I had him, my ex, Mark. Mark was my rock, my confidant, the person I trusted more than anyone in the world. Our love was passionate and consuming, filled with laughter, shared dreams, and promises of forever. We spent endless nights talking about our future, sketching out plans on napkins in little cafes, and wandering through the city streets as if the whole world belonged to us. His presence made the hardest days bearable, and his encouragement pushed me to aim higher than I ever thought possible. In those early days, everything seemed perfect. Our relationship was like a fairy tale. Mark would surprise me with flowers on ordinary days and take me to places I'd only ever dreamed of visiting. He would often whisper words of admiration, telling me that I was unstoppable and that the world would one day know my name. His support filled me with a warmth that made the coldest nights seem like a distant memory. I trusted him completely. I believed every word he said, but even in the midst of that brightness, there were subtle hints that something wasn't quite right. Sometimes when we were alone, I would notice a shadow in his eyes, an inexplicable flicker of uncertainty that vanished the moment I looked away. There were moments during our long conversations when he hesitated, as if holding back secrets he wasn't ready to share. I brushed those thoughts aside, attributing them to the stress of work or the pressure of trying to build a future together. I told myself that love could overcome anything. I remember one particularly clear evening. We sat in a small, cozy restaurant that overlooked a busy street, the hum of the city merging with soft jazz playing in the background. The aroma of fresh basil and garlic filled the air, blending perfectly with the sound of clinking glasses and subdued chatter. Everything was perfect, and for a while I allowed myself to believe that nothing could ever shatter this bubble of contentment. We laughed, we talked about our future, and for a moment time seemed to stand still. But as I sat across from him, laughing over dinner, I had no idea that my world was about to collapse in ways I never imagined. That night, as I walked home under the neon glow of city lights, I replayed every moment of the evening in my head. The way Mark's hand brushed mine, the sound of his laughter, the sincerity in his eyes, everything seemed so genuine. Yet, a small, nagging voice in the back of my mind whispered doubts I couldn't quite ignore. I told myself it was just exhaustion, a fleeting moment of insecurity. I clung to the belief that nothing could hurt me when I had love on my side. I had no idea how wrong I was. Days turned into weeks and the cracks began to widen. I noticed that Mark started to come home later, and his once warm greetings became curt and distracted. Our conversations grew shorter, and the comfortable silence that used to envelop us was replaced by a palpable tension. I tried to brush it off, attributing it to the inevitable stress of building a business. But the truth was far more sinister. One evening, I received a call that changed everything. My phone rang repeatedly, its insistent buzz dragging me out of a half-dream. I answered, expecting a casual conversation or a business inquiry. Instead, I was met with a cold, unfamiliar voice that simply said, "You need to come to the office now." My heart skipped a beat as I hurried to my workplace, dread gnawing at my insides. When I arrived, I found a scene that made my stomach drop. Colleagues were gathered in hushed clusters, their eyes filled with pity and something else I couldn't quite place. Fear, perhaps? Or guilt. The air was heavy, and the usually bustling office was eerily quiet. It didn't take long for the whispers to reach me. Mark had been meeting with investors behind my back, and worse, he had presented my work as his own. The betrayal was staggering. I felt as if the ground had been ripped from under my feet, leaving me stranded in a void of disbelief and despair. Questions raced through my mind. How could he do this? Was our love all a lie? Every memory of shared dreams and whispered promises turned bitter, the warmth of our past now twisted into something cold and destructive. I felt the sting of every unspoken doubt that I had ever ignored. My mind reeled with the realization that the man I trusted more than anyone had not only stolen my work, but had used it to secure his own rise, leaving me with nothing but shattered hopes. I remember the moment clearly. Sitting in my office, I stared blankly at the screen displaying the presentation. The title was mine, the design was mine, every line of code was a piece of my soul. And yet, it was all attributed to him. I felt the overwhelming weight of betrayal, the gnawing pain of knowing that every sacrifice, every sleepless night had been in vain. The shock turned into a fierce, burning anger that surged through me like wildfire, threatening to consume everything in its path. In that moment, the world around me blurred into insignificance. I was left alone with the painful truth. The person I loved, the one I believed in with every fiber of my being, had turned his back on me in the worst way possible. I felt abandoned, worthless, as if all the years of dreaming and striving had been a cruel joke played on me by the person I trusted most. That day, I left the office with nothing but a heavy heart and a newfound resolve. I had lost everything: my work, my future, my trust. But I wasn't going to let that be the end of my story. As I walked away, I made a silent vow. I would rebuild, not just to prove them wrong, but to show the world that I was stronger than the betrayal that had nearly destroyed me. I wasn't just a victim. I was someone who had the power to rise from the deepest of falls. And even as the pain threatened to overwhelm me, a small ember of determination began to glow within. I promised myself that I would take back what was rightfully mine no matter the cost. That night, as I sat alone in my tiny apartment, tears mixing with the remnants of shattered dreams, I whispered to the empty room, "This isn't the end. I will rise again." The betrayal had left scars that might never fully heal, but they would also serve as the fuel for my comeback. I couldn't let him have the last laugh. I had to reclaim my identity, my work, my future. I looked at the scattered remnants of my notes and designs, the pieces of a life I had built with so much hope. In that silent, dark room, I felt a stirring, a resolve that promised not just revenge, but a rebirth. Every moment of pain, every drop of sweat and tear had led me to this point. I wasn't going to disappear into the shadows of my past. I was going to stand tall and show them exactly what they had underestimated. The cold truth was harsh, but it also cleared my vision. I realized then that what I had lost was not just material success. It was a part of my identity. And now, I was determined to take it all back. The spark of vengeance had been ignited, and it would soon become an inferno that would consume everything in its path. I thought I understood him. I thought I knew the depth of our love and the promise it held. But the reality was far more painful. The betrayal was a wound deeper than I had ever known, and it left me with nothing but the raw, searing need for justice. That day marked the end of everything I once believed in. And yet, it was also the beginning of a journey that would transform my pain into power. I had lost everything to my ex, but in that devastating moment, I discovered a strength I never knew I possessed. She didn't just steal my work. She stole my future, my reputation, my name. I had nothing left. But I wasn't going to stay defeated. If she thought she could erase me, she was wrong. I still remember the day my world shattered. It began with a subtle shift, a late call that came out of nowhere, a hesitation in his voice I had never heard before. One moment I was filled with hope and love. The next, everything I had built was slipping away. I discovered that behind his charming smile and comforting words lay a cold, calculating heart. It wasn't a sudden explosion of betrayal, but rather a slow, creeping poison that had seeped into every conversation, every promise we made. One evening, as I sat at our kitchen table, I overheard him speaking softly on the phone, words I wasn't meant to catch. My hands began to tremble as I pieced together the truth. Legal documents, bank statements, and secret meetings that I never knew existed. I felt my heart break as I realized he had been using me, manipulating my trust to build his own empire at my expense. I confronted him the next day, my voice shaking with raw emotion. "How could you?" I asked, barely able to contain the flood of hurt and anger. His reply was cold, dismissive, a twisted justification that made me question everything I believed in. "It's just business," he said, as if our love had been nothing more than a transaction. Those words cut deeper than any physical wound. Friends who had once celebrated our union now avoided my gaze, whispering behind my back. I lost not only my home and my savings, but also the respect I once had among those I trusted. The betrayal spread like wildfire, and soon my reputation lay in tatters. I was left alone, abandoned by those who had vowed to stand by me. My family, who had once offered me unconditional love, turned their backs, convinced by his lies that I was the problem. Every connection I had painstakingly built vanished as I watched my life crumble before my eyes. I went from being someone with dreams to a shell of despair, questioning whether I was ever truly worthy of happiness. In the midst of this chaos, some friends offered solace, their support a small light in an otherwise dark period. Others, however, distanced themselves, unwilling to risk their own reputation on my misfortune. I remember sitting alone in a tiny, cold apartment, the silence louder than any accusation, feeling the bitter taste of isolation. I had lost everything, my work, my status, my love, and I had nothing left to hold on to. I spent days in that dark place, replaying every moment, every smile, every whispered promise. I felt the sting of betrayal like acid on my soul. The realization that someone I loved had systematically dismantled my future left me hollow and numb. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. Every waking minute was consumed by a burning need for answers and, ultimately, for justice. I reached out to a few remaining allies, people who still believed in me, and they listened with empathy. They reminded me that even in my darkest hour, there was a spark of determination that refused to be extinguished. Their words, though kind, only fueled my resolve further. I began to wonder if perhaps I still had one thing left, something to fight for. I started retracing every step, every decision that led me to that moment, desperate to understand how someone could betray me so completely. I found evidence in hidden files and forgotten emails. Every piece of proof was like a small victory that, combined, formed the blueprint of my eventual comeback. As the days passed, the raw shock gradually transformed into a cold, calculating fury. I realized that while he had stolen my work, my future, and my trust, he had not stolen my spirit. I had been left with nothing, but even in that emptiness, a fierce will began to burn. I looked in the mirror and saw not the broken person he had tried to create, but a fighter ready to reclaim everything. I made a silent promise to myself. I would not let his deception define me. I would rise, rebuild, and make sure he regretted the day he ever thought he could control my destiny. I thought he had taken everything from me. But as I sat there, overwhelmed by a mix of grief and defiance, one thing became crystal clear. I still had one thing left: my will to fight back. I spent days in silence, not mourning, but planning. Every sleepless night, every tear I shed had built the foundation of my comeback. I refused to remain broken. I began by scouring through old files, rereading every note and email, searching for the smallest detail that could turn the tide. I remembered the warmth of determination I once felt when I first started building my dream. Now that flame burned brighter than ever. At first I felt lost, overwhelmed by the betrayal that had stolen my future. But then a spark of defiance ignited inside me. I realized that my pain could be transformed into power. I set out to rebuild my life piece by piece, not by clinging to the past, but by planning every move toward a future I could control. I dove into research, learning everything about the legal loopholes, financial strategies, and marketing secrets that could expose the truth and dismantle the empire built on my stolen work. In my quest for answers, unexpected allies began to appear. An old friend from college reached out, someone I hadn't spoken to in years, who believed in my vision and had once admired my passion. A mentor I had almost lost contact with also offered guidance, reminding me of my worth and the brilliance of my ideas. Even a stranger who overheard my story in a small cafe provided me with crucial information about the hidden contracts that sealed my ex's deception. Their support was a balm for my wounded spirit and a spark for my determination. I started making small victories. I uncovered a series of emails that revealed secret meetings and shady deals. I found discrepancies in the legal documents that transferred ownership of my work. Each piece of evidence was like a small key, unlocking the door to a much larger plan. I began to draft a strategy that would not only reclaim what was mine, but would expose his lies to the world. I set up discreet meetings with lawyers and financial experts, building a network of people who believed in justice as much as I did. Their expertise filled in the gaps of my knowledge, and slowly the pieces of the puzzle began to come together. I learned to navigate the complexities of legal battles and corporate takeovers. Every piece of advice, every small success in gathering evidence reinforced my resolve and made me more certain that I could win back everything he had taken. But the journey was far from smooth. There were moments when self-doubt crept in, when the weight of my loss seemed too heavy to bear. I questioned whether I was strong enough to face him, whether I could truly rebuild a life from the wreckage. In those moments, I would recall the hurtful words he had once spoken, the cold indifference in his eyes when he betrayed me. That memory fueled my determination, reminding me that I deserved more, that I was meant to rise. Every step forward was a battle. I faced setbacks when evidence was mysteriously delayed or when potential allies hesitated, unsure of taking a stand against someone so powerful. There were tense moments when I nearly gave up, when the fear of failure loomed larger than the desire for justice. But each time, I picked myself up, driven by the memory of everything I had lost and the unyielding hope of reclaiming my identity. I even had a face-to-face encounter with him one day. Out of the blue, we ran into each other at a networking event. He tried to smile, a mask of nonchalance covering his eyes, but I saw the arrogance and the betrayal behind it. His words were smooth, dismissive, a reminder that he still thought he was untouchable. I held my silence, knowing that now was not the time for anger, but for careful planning. The encounter left me even more determined. It was clear that he had no idea what I was capable of now. With every new piece of evidence I uncovered, every conversation with a supportive ally, I began to form a comprehensive plan. I meticulously gathered the documents that proved my claims, the contracts that detailed his deception, and the testimonies of those who had seen his true nature. I transformed my grief into a blueprint for my return. Every late night spent poring over files, every cold call to a potential witness, every small win in court filings was a step toward rebuilding not just my career, but my entire life. I started to regain confidence. No longer was I the person who once believed his empty promises. I had evolved into someone who was fiercely independent and ready to reclaim my destiny. I learned that revenge was not merely about inflicting pain. It was about restoring justice and proving that my worth could never be taken away. I embraced every setback as a lesson, every betrayal as a reminder of what I needed to fight for. As the plan took shape, the pieces of my stolen future began to reassemble. My network grew stronger, and the whispers of his deceit became louder. Investors who had once been dazzled by his lies now began to ask uncomfortable questions. Colleagues and former friends, inspired by my resilience, started to rally around me. With each new alliance, I felt my power returning. It was as if I had discovered a part of myself I had long forgotten, a part that was invincible. I practiced my presentation, refined every word of my statement, and prepared for the final showdown. I knew that when the moment came, every detail would matter. The hours of planning, the countless sacrifices, and the pain of betrayal were all leading to that single defining moment. I was no longer the victim I once was. I had transformed into a strategist, a force that could not be ignored. In the quiet moments before the confrontation, I allowed myself a brief pause, a moment to reflect on how far I had come. I recalled the days when I believed I was nothing, when every rejection felt like a nail in my coffin. Those memories fueled my determination now, pushing me to ensure that he and everyone who doubted me would pay dearly for what he had done. The deeper I dug, the more I realized he had more to lose than I ever did. And I was going to make sure he did. I thought I had everything figured out, until a secret message shattered my carefully laid plans. One evening, while I was reviewing old documents for my comeback strategy, I found a hidden email buried deep in my inbox. The subject line read simply, "Don't trust him." My hands shook as I opened it, and what I read made my heart sink. It revealed that my ex wasn't alone in his deceit. He'd been working with someone else behind my back. It wasn't just a betrayal of love. It was a full-blown fraud. Hidden deals, secret contracts, and even a scandalous affair were all part of the scheme he had built to ruin me and boost his own status. I stared at the screen in disbelief. Every promise, every kind word he had whispered turned out to be a lie. I had been the pawn in a larger game, one that involved not just personal betrayal, but corporate manipulation and financial ruin. The person I thought I knew was a master of deception, and this new revelation added another layer of betrayal. As I read, I realized that the stakes were much higher than I had ever imagined. Then, a name appeared that I hadn't seen in years, a former colleague who had once been my trusted friend. He re-entered my life with an urgent message, warning me that my ex had been using his influence to cover up the scandal. This revelation was a turning point. It wasn't just about reclaiming my work or my reputation anymore. It was about exposing an entire network of lies and corruption. I understood that the plan I had been building for revenge had to change, become larger and bolder. The betrayal cut deeper than I expected. I felt raw anger, a burning need to set things right. Every memory of our shared dreams turned bitter. Yet amid the pain, something shifted inside me. I began to see that I was not just a victim. I had the power to dismantle the web of deceit that had entangled my life. No longer would I allow him to use me as a stepping stone. I would become the force that brought his empire crashing down. I spent hours on end piecing together every detail, from the email, every hidden contract, every secret meeting. With each piece of evidence, my resolve hardened. I contacted those who had once supported me, and slowly, a small army of allies gathered around me. They were as shocked by the revelations as I was, and together, we began to forge a plan to expose the truth. The truth was now my weapon, stronger than any desire for revenge. I realized that all along I had been driven by a need to reclaim what was stolen from me. But now it was about exposing the lies, about shining a light on the corruption that had ruined so many lives. Everything I thought I knew about my ex was a lie. And now, I had something far more powerful than revenge. I had the truth. I spent weeks putting together every detail, every piece of evidence that would finally expose the lies and reclaim what was mine. Every night I worked in the shadows, studying contracts, gathering documents, talking quietly with those who still believed in justice. I made plans that would leave no room for doubt, every move carefully calculated to dismantle his empire of deceit. Conversations with old friends and unexpected allies became my lifeline. In hushed tones over coffee and late-night calls, they urged me on, reassuring me that I was not alone in this fight. Some warned me to be cautious, to cover my tracks, while others shared their own stories of loss and betrayal, lending their support to my cause. Their words, though filled with worry, sparked a determination within me that I had never known before. I listened to their advice, learned from their mistakes, and slowly my plan began to take shape. Every detail mattered now. I reached out to trusted lawyers and financial experts who helped me uncover hidden accounts and shady deals that had been used to cover up the theft. I scrutinized every email, every contract, piecing together a timeline of lies that showed exactly how he had built his new life on my hard work. In the process, I discovered not only the extent of his betrayal, but also weaknesses in his operation that I could exploit. I collected proof that would not only ruin his reputation, but also force those around him to question their own choices. The tension built with every passing day. I could feel his grip slipping, as whispers of discontent began to circulate in the circles he once controlled. Investors who had blindly trusted him started asking hard questions, and even his closest associates began to show signs of unease. I would catch glimpses of him in public, his face drawn, eyes shifting nervously, as if he sensed the storm that was coming. I knew that every misstep, every small crack in his facade, was another victory in my favor. There were moments when fear crept in, moments when the enormity of the task made me question whether I was strong enough to go through with it all. Late at night, when the world was quiet, doubts would swirl in my mind. What if my plan failed? What if I lost everything again? But then I would remember every tear, every sacrifice, and every piece of my broken heart that I had gathered along the way, and I would know I could not let that pain be in vain. I practiced my approach repeatedly, rehearsing the confrontation in my mind. I envisioned every detail of the scene where I would stand before him, not as a victim, but as someone who had reclaimed her power. I rehearsed the words I would say, calm, precise, and unyielding, so that when the moment came, I would speak, with clarity and strength. I built a network of allies who were prepared to support me publicly, ensuring that the truth would not be silenced by his influence. Every meeting, every conversation, every moment spent preparing reinforced my resolve. As the day of the final showdown drew near, the pressure became almost unbearable. Every phone call, every email, every hushed discussion felt like the last piece of a puzzle falling into place. I set everything up meticulously. I arranged for the evidence to be released in a way that could not be disputed. I coordinated with my legal team, ensuring that all documents were irrefutable. I even prepared a statement, a powerful message, of reclaiming my identity that I would deliver when the time was right. In the days leading up to that crucial moment, I faced close calls. There were times when I nearly slipped up, when someone almost discovered my plans. I moved cautiously, always one step ahead, never allowing anyone to see my vulnerabilities. The stakes were too high to make a single mistake. Every minute was spent double-checking, rechecking, and refining my strategy. The pressure was immense, but it also fueled my determination. Finally, the day arrived. With everything in place, I stepped into the arena, ready, resolute, and transformed. Every detail of my preparation culminated in that one moment when I would stand before him and reveal the truth. I could feel my heart pounding, my breath steady, as I approached the confrontation that would change everything. This was it. No turning back. He was about to learn that the person he destroyed had come back stronger than ever. I stepped into the room with every ounce of strength I had left, my eyes fixed on him. The air felt thick with tension as I approached, every heartbeat a reminder of the years of pain and betrayal that brought me here. I could see the flicker of shock in his eyes as I stood before him, no longer the vulnerable person he once knew, but a force that demanded to be heard. For too long, he had taken advantage of my trust and shattered my dreams. Now, in this moment of reckoning, every lie and every stolen hope was laid bare for everyone to see. I spoke slowly, letting each word cut through the silence. "You took everything from me," I said, my voice steady and unwavering. "My work, my future, my very self. And now, I'm here to take it all back." His face drained of color, and I saw panic ripple across his features as he struggled to find words. The room around us fell quiet as people listened, their eyes darting between us. I could sense the shift in power. The arrogance he once wore like a crown was crumbling before the weight of the truth. I continued, not with anger, but with a cold determination. You thought you could erase me with your lies, but you underestimated the strength of someone who refused to be broken. His mouth opened, and he attempted to speak, but his words faltered as I revealed the evidence, the emails, the contracts, the proof of deceit that now hung in the air like a storm cloud. I watched as his confident facade dissolved into confusion and despair. In that split second, I saw him searching for a way out, trying to hide behind excuses that rang hollow to everyone present. A murmur ran through the room as I laid out the facts with precision, each revelation a blow to his carefully constructed image. I wasn't here just to hurt him. I was here to reclaim my identity and restore the honor that had been stolen from me. I built my dreams from nothing, I said softly, the memory of sleepless nights and endless struggle fueling my voice. I trusted you with my heart and my future. But now, the truth stands, and it's undeniable. I paused, letting the silence speak for itself. The man before me trembled, his eyes darting around as if seeking help that would never come. I had a choice: to continue the path of pure revenge or to rise above and seek justice. In that moment, I chose to let my actions speak louder than words. I turned away, leaving him to confront the wreckage of his own making. And in that moment, as I watched the truth shatter his world just like he shattered mine, I knew. I had already won. I walked away from that confrontation feeling both empty and victorious. In the days that followed, the shock in the room turned into a storm of whispers and regrets. People I once trusted looked at me with a mix of awe and envy, while his supporters faded into silence. I spent hours reflecting on everything I had endured, each setback, each moment of betrayal, and wondered if the cost had been worth it. The pain of losing my work, my future, had been immense, yet it forced me to become someone stronger, more determined than I ever thought possible. My life began to change in ways I hadn't imagined. I rebuilt my reputation step by step, regaining control over my career and rediscovering the passion that had driven me all along. Financial stability came slowly, but it was the emotional and mental recovery that truly transformed me. I no longer allowed the past to dictate my worth. Instead, every scar became a reminder of my resilience, every tear a symbol of the battles I'd fought. As for him, the man who had once promised me the world now found himself isolated and humbled. His empire crumbled as investors withdrew and colleagues distanced themselves. I heard that he spent sleepless nights questioning every decision, haunted by the echo of his broken promises. Some tried to fight back, but the truth had left him. Exposed and vulnerable, his arrogance had been stripped away, leaving only regret and desperation in its place. In the midst of these changes, friends who had once doubted me now offered support and encouragement. Their pride in my strength was palpable, and even those who had once sneered now looked on with silent admiration. I began to see a future that was not defined by revenge, but by my own reclaimed power and potential. Looking ahead, I realized this was not the end of my journey. It was a new beginning. I had taken back what was mine. But as I looked ahead, I realized I was just getting started. I stood in the place where it all began, feeling the weight of every moment fade into a quiet clarity. I had been shattered by betrayal, but that pain had molded me into something stronger than I ever imagined. Each scar reminded me of battles fought and lessons learned, and every tear had led me to this transformation. I realized that revenge wasn't the ultimate answer. It was simply a catalyst that pushed me to discover my true self. Looking back on the journey, I saw a person who once believed that love and trust were everything, who poured heart and soul into dreams that were cruelly stolen. I remembered the nights spent alone in despair, questioning my worth and the meaning of it all. But those dark hours gave way to moments of quiet resolve, when I discovered that my value wasn't tied to what I lost, but to the strength I found within myself. I rebuilt my life piece by piece, reclaiming not just what was taken from me, but also the dignity and passion that had been buried beneath the betrayal. I reconnected with people who had always believed in me, finding comfort and support in those genuine moments of understanding. Their presence, combined with the fierce determination that now burned inside me, helped me see that true victory was not in revenge alone. It was in rising above the pain and becoming who I was always meant to be. Every challenge I faced, every setback I overcame, reinforced the truth that my worth is defined by my resilience and my courage. In the quiet aftermath, as I looked at the life I had painstakingly rebuilt, I realized that every moment of suffering had been a stepping stone to this powerful renewal. I was no longer that broken person left behind by someone I once loved. I had grown into someone with purpose and an unshakable will to move forward, transforming my loss into a new beginning. This wasn't just about taking back what I lost. It was about becoming the person I was meant to be all along. I stepped into what I thought was a new beginning, feeling the thrill of victory and the sweet taste of freedom. The days of betrayal, heartache, and endless struggle had finally been put behind me. Everything seemed settled. I had rebuilt my life, reclaimed my identity, and moved forward with a strength I never knew I had. Every challenge I had overcome, every bitter tear had led me here, to a future filled with promise and hope. But just as I allowed myself a moment of peace, my phone buzzed. A sudden, unexpected sound in the quiet. I glanced down and saw a message notification that made my heart skip a beat. My hands trembled as I opened it, hoping for reassurance. But instead, I found only two chilling words. "You're next." The message sent a shiver down my spine. It wasn't a threat I had anticipated. Had my past really caught up with me? Or was this the start of something even darker? I stared at the screen, my mind racing. The quiet certainty of my victory wavered for a moment, as fear mixed with determination. I had fought so hard to rise from the ashes, to prove that I was more than what they had taken from me. Now, this ominous message suggested that the battle was far from over. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for whatever came next, knowing that the war was just beginning.